Hello and good afternoon. Tom Galucci here with the Mortgage Collaborative. I want to welcome everybody to this April Fool's Day edition of TMC Tech Talk. And if you're wondering if we're live, we're not out to fool you. Today's discussion is actually pre-recorded from earlier this week, since when you're watching this live, I will actually be at Terranea Resort, helping review the site as we build out our agenda for Reunited TMC Summer 2021, coming to you live and in person September 18th through the 21st. So stay tuned for a lot more detail around our return to in-person. But shameless plug aside, this is TMC Tech Talk, where every other Thursday I'm joined by special guests within mortgage tech, within our network here at the Mortgage Collaborative, to talk about current events, new innovations, consumer experience, and also spotlighting our guests' direct contribution towards pushing forward innovation within the mortgage industry. So throughout this discussion, any comments, questions, suggestions on future discussion topics or industry leaders you'd like to see as part of a Tech Talk episode, drop those in the chat, or you can reach out to me or anyone directly here on the Mortgage Collaborative team. But on that note, I want to dive directly into our discussion for today. So I want to welcome in our guests. We've got a great tag team here that makes up third partner iEmergent, and that would be CEO Laird Nossuli and COO Bernard Nossuli. So Bernard, Laird, great to see you both, and welcome to TMC Tech Talk.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
So, as I always like to start off with these interviews, kind of giving some background for our attendees, for our guests, and seeing as very few of us kind of intended to end up in the mortgage industry when we were younger in our studious days, wanted to start off by allowing you kind of give us your background and how you ended up in the mortgage industry, and more specifically, how you ended up leading iEmergent.
Okay, Tom, well, I will start with that. I'm surprised, like you said, that I'm in the mortgage industry too. But, it's kind of an interesting story. Emergent was actually founded almost 2 decades ago in 2000 by my father, Dennis Headland. And he was an executive at a large lender, spent quite a bit of time in that role, and he left because he wanted to pursue a more forward-looking approach to handling strategic issues. And so, it was easier to do that on his own. Well, he invited me to join him right after school, right after college, which I did. And then I went back to graduate school and got my master's in social work. So not exactly a perfect fit for the mortgage industry. But anyway, in 2009 or 2008, I came back to help him continue to grow Emergent. And, obviously after the meltdown, we had some issues we had to deal with, a lot of interesting issues with our clients. But to make a long story short, my father was diagnosed with a terminal lung disease in 2009. He had a lung transplant in 2014. And so when he got the call for the transplant, I became CEO overnight. We were lucky enough to have my father for another 2 years, but actually the 26th marked the 5th year since he passed away. So that's how I came to be leading Emergent. And certainly the social work side has become really important and valuable as we do a lot more work with diverse markets. So that's how come I'm here. I'm going to let Bernard give his own side.
Yeah, so I like to call this my third tour with the company. I was there when we started it all in 2000, and then I left to go back to graduate school, and then rejoined in 2006. And like Laird said, with the economy kind of tanking around that time, I left to pursue a different job for a few years, but then came back in, I think it was 2015, as Laird mentioned, when she became CEO. And we've been here ever since, kind of together and growing the business. So it's been exciting for us.
I can imagine probably the quick turnaround into your roles. Well, I'm sure it comes with some stressors, probably brought you a little closer together in the same capacity and trying to figure out how to, continue running and grow the firm, thrust into the roles and opportunities that you currently seated. So always love the backstory, and this industry is funny, always finds a way of, even if you step away, pulling you back in over time.
Right. That's for sure.
Exactly.
So, I want to also give our attendees a little additional color in case there's some listening in today that may not be familiar with Emergent. Would you give a brief kind of explanation on how the firm leverages technology and data to kind of inform the mortgage industry on future origination trends?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll field that one. So when we started in 2000, it was a pure mortgage consultancy. We basically did business with the contacts that Dennis had in the industry. But that evolved over time as he decided to start forecasting. And we started at the national level, I think right around 2002. And then a couple years later, we went down to the county level. And again, so our spreadsheets grew to around 3,000 rows with all the counties. And then a few years later, it was like, let's get even more granular and get to the census tract level. And so by that time, we had over, 72,000 census tracts. And so the information quickly became unwieldy in spreadsheet form. And so, Dennis had a thought of how do we communicate this information quickly and easily? And it became about maps, because maps are about place, and you can, picture is worth 1,000 words, and that was certainly true. And so back in 2007, 2008, we were using a program called Microsoft Maps or MapPoint. In any case, it was far from our ultimate vision as we developed refined our forecasting and developed our platform that we have today, which is a dynamic mapping platform we call Mortgage Market Smart, that was started about 6 years ago. The idea was a Google Maps, but it also contained a layer of our forecasting, basically where mortgages are going to happen anywhere in the US, from states all the way down to census tracts. And so the idea there was that it was a web-based application. And we've just launched our version 2.0 this past year. I believe May will be the 1 year anniversary of it. But today the idea is that we can show lenders where mortgages are going to happen. And not only that, but overlay a layer of their originations, their branch locations, and anything like that to be able to identify potential gaps in coverage in the market, which Laird will go into a little bit deeper.
Yeah, so I think again, this is where technology has been, really critical, and that's that. As we look, and I know we're going to talk later about some of the trends that we're seeing and how that impacts the industry. But one of the key pieces of information key developments is, looking at markets in a more collaborative way, but also more comprehensively. And so as you start layering in more and more information, obviously you need a way to consume that. So Bernard talked about how we can start, layering on top all these different pieces. But a big piece of that, being successful with all this data is figuring out how to use it, not just to know it, but to, increase profitability, decrease turnover, all the things that we think about when when data has to be paired with a good business decision. So the good thing about like a software as a service or a software as a platform model is that it allows us to pull all these different pieces of data in. And then as we look through that, we can see these gaps in coverage. And those really are those areas where we can see high opportunity, but also we can overlay those high opportunity areas with where a lender is already performing, so that we can easily see where they're underperforming and match that with the areas that have the greatest opportunity. So if you think about that, you take, in a sense, the best case market scenario and your worst case market scenario, put those two together, and that's the perfect spot for starting to do your analysis. And so technology really has made it, that the ability to have it be dynamic on the fly, bringing in the MLS data and some other things that we're doing. Technology has been the enabler of that. And again, not so much in creating the data, but in making it actionable.
Well, and to your point, Laird, like that to me is the biggest key to data and being able to leverage it. We've talked about this in numerous prior Tech Talk episodes. Data aggregation is great, and in the mortgage industry, we've got so much of it at our fingertips, and a lot of times, lenders in particular are overwhelmed by it and don't necessarily know how to take it from the next level as to how to best leverage that data, that information, to your point, for making informed decisions for increasing profitability, enhancing operational efficiencies, different things along those lines. And what I love about your guys' platform is it's highly visual, and you can layer so much information in there. It really makes that data and the insights that Mortgage Market Smart in particular provides extremely actionable to the end user. And I can say through technology's advancements, I am highly grateful that you don't have to leverage spreadsheet form anymore to be able to track out Bernard, 72,000 fields of information. Because there's so much visually from the iEmergent platform to be able to see and peruse through that. You'd almost be lost if trying to mine through that in a spreadsheet format.
Well, Tom, that brings up a really important point, and that's that, we've always been asked, what is the best market? What are the top markets? And that answer is different each time. It's what's the best market for you? What fits your strategy? And because it's an engaged platform like that, really every lender can customize the data to fit their needs. Imagine if we were doing spreadsheets and someone wanted to change a configuration or put a new branch in there. They have to call us, we'd have to do it, reproduce a spreadsheet, send it back to them. That's what it used to be like. Well, now it's all on the fly. And so we can, put our data out there in a way that, it's the same forecast for everybody, but the use cases are so specific that you could take the exact same market and two lenders would come away with completely different strategies. I mean, we see that all the time. And that's, I think, again, so important because, I think it's easy to fall into generic strategies instead of being targeted. And it's, again, that targeted piece, that pinpointing is what makes, the difference between a successful strategy or a successful outcome and just sort of, we had a strategy, we executed, we don't see any difference because it probably wasn't targeted to what outcome you were looking for.
Well, exactly. And I mean, there's so many lenders operating in just about every market. To be able to have that defined strategy, to your point, it's got to be really pinpointed to what are your goals? What are you looking to achieve? How are you looking to diversify your lending footprint? And you're exactly right. It's going to be completely different for two lenders in the same market, depending on what their current and go forward strategies are.
Right.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And so, iEmergent's known for forecasting what's coming next in mortgage markets, which I think is so unique. So many times we're focusing on past data and trying to reflect on what that's going to mean over the next 6 months to a year to so on. You guys are hyper focused on that forward-looking data and leveraging the visual tools and mapping at your client's disposal. So I'm curious, as I'm sure many lenders are right now, what are you seeing out there in some of the latest data that lenders, I guess trend-wise should be very aware of in this current marketplace?
Well, typically that answer can have a lot of different points, but this year I'd say there are three main ones. The first one is, and again, I don't think any of this is going to be a surprise to anybody, but that the market is going to be pivoting toward purchase. I mean, that's the path it's headed down. We've been in this refi environment for far longer than really any of us expected, but we are going to be making a pivot to purchase. What makes that so interesting and I think in some ways so exciting is that we're pairing that pivot with a newfound importance of diversity. And that comes from two different pieces. One of those is that, obviously the demographics of the home buyer pool are changing. And we define the home buyer pool as the, number of households that are ready, willing, and able to finance a home. Well, if you think about the household pool in the United States, that's shifting so rapidly. I mean, it was going, but now it's sort of like an exponential change. I think I was just reading today that the 77% of household formation over the next decade will come from minority households. Like, we can't deny the data like that. I mean, again, we've been on that path for a while, but over the summer, there is, the other thing that's coming, that's kind of collided is, that demographic shift with some societal change. The idea of reputational equity coming out there, and we're starting to talk about DE&I, and that is such a motivator across industries that I think if you pair that with this pivot to purchase, you pair that with the change in demographics, and you're really left with this, you're at the spot for a lender where if you're not prepared to deal with that type of change, you're not going to succeed. Before it was like, oh, it's important to your business, it's opportunity, business imperative. This is beyond that. This is like, if you don't do this, 3 years from now, you're going to start becoming obsolete, because that is the path we're on, and it's not going to change. The third piece of that, though, is that with the change in the administration, we are going to see a newfound emphasis on affordable housing, affordable lending, and just increased emphasis on that equity and lending piece. And actually, it was Tony Bramley who came up with a way of saying this that I love. And she said the CFPB is going to have its bite back. In a sense, that's true. So there's going to be, added importance of regulations. At the same time, though, there's also going to be new incentives. So the administration is going to require more of lenders, but hopefully there's going to be some benefits that we can all take advantage of and start looking at this in a, hyper-focused on opportunity. So that's what I'm seeing. I don't know if Bernard has anything else to add to that, but.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's spot on with those three trends that we're seeing that are going to be very apparent and at the forefront for the rest of 2021 and into 2022.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's not coincidental that we're seeing the GSEs in particular leading with affordable lending initiatives in 21. And it makes sense too, from a business continuity standpoint, is that lenders that have been able to, simply drink from the hose of the refi volume, we're seeing it already just in this past month, a rapid fall off of those new refinance application rates. And, lenders are going to have to, centralize their focus from a purchase standpoint on their originations and get creative in the lending tools as well. So affordable initiatives will be a big part of that. So no, you're right. Nothing earth-shattering per se, but definitely validates a lot of what we're hearing and seeing within the industry.
It's very exciting too, because a lot of our clients, to your point, are doing really creative things. There's good work being done, and what we've seen is that when we can enable them or empower them with data and tools, they're doing things that they before didn't think they could do. They didn't think they could be profitable in particular markets. They didn't think they had the expertise and what they needed to be successful with this. And they're finding that creativity and, that collaborative look centered around information, it's giving them what they need. And I think they're really excited by it. And I certainly am.
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially providing the tools or the keys, if you will, towards lenders, to be able to expand the box of home ownership, which so many have been fighting and advocating for years. And, here we are at the cusp of a golden opportunity to do just that.
Yep.
So quick reminder, you're watching TMC Tech Talk with today's special guests, Bernard and Laird Nossuli of iEmergent. As we continue on here, we're talking a lot about affordable lending initiatives, and I think a lot of that can relate to HMDA data, especially in a new administration being more critical than in recent memory because of the renewed focus on affordable lending adherence and CRA-based initiatives in 2021 and beyond. How do your HMDA origination reports support lenders in this capacity?
Well, Tom, we're actually really excited about the latest tool that we just released about a month ago. It is called the Top Lender Report, and it gives lenders the ability to check their market share at any level of geography. So by state, by MSA, by county, even down to the census tract, and figure out, okay, let's take Miami, Florida. So a lender can see, all right, well, who are the top lenders in Miami? Okay. And you can say overall, right, for total purchase, for example. And you can see your list, your top 20, your top 100, the entire list of anyone who made an origination in Miami. But what's really exciting about this top lender report that we've developed is the ability to say, okay, well, now still in Miami, who is the top lender to African American borrowers? Who was the top lender to Asian borrowers, to Hispanic borrowers? Who was the top lender for VA loans? So we can check all that and be able to, at the click of a button, really see how the share changes depending on the segment you're trying to analyze. But not only that, within the same table, we can then fly around from Miami to Miami, Ohio, and figure out the same equation in the sense that, okay, well, who are the top lenders for X, Y, and Z in Miami of Ohio, for example? And so it really makes it easy and simple for lenders to get to that information. It's really a HMDA mining ability to be able to go into that HMDA, those millions of records of HMDA, and be able to retrieve that information within seconds for yourself so that you can inform your specific lending strategy in each of those markets.
And so, Bernard, real quick, just to expand upon that, with the top lender report, what is the time frame, I guess, looking back on that historical data? Is it like the past year or a certain month period, or kind of flexible based on what a lender would want to see?
Yeah, it's based on years. So we can go back. I think right now we have 2 years in, and we're looking to add more as we continue to go forward. But so we can go back to 2018, we have 2019 and 2020 HMDA, which should be released this week, will be added within the next month or so, if not sooner, so that we'll have at least 3 years of data that lenders can go back on.
Well, that's awesome. And then just to confirm, you can drill that data down to basically any track, MSA, or county across the country?
Any geography, anywhere in the US, you get all that information that you're able to find. You're to dig into, let's say there's a specific town or city that you're interested as a lender to say, hey, we need to improve our market share here. We can zone in to that specific area to figure out who the top lenders are, what the top loan types are, and who's doing that business, so that as a lender, you can focus your specific lending strategy and make sure that you have the right products facing the right market segments.
And I'm going to expand on that because there's two pieces that are also important. One is that not only can we see by product, we can actually say, all right, who are the top lenders only in LMI tracks, only in HMT tracks, or high minority tracks. And then because we can do census tract, we can create, we can build those up to custom zones. And so if you think about those gaps in coverage we talked about earlier, well, we can say, okay, here's this little gap that we're going to call zone 1. It's where we have huge issues and there's a ton of opportunity. Who's in that specific zone? Who are the top lenders? And then the other piece is that the flip side of the top lender report is what we call our lender share layer. We can actually map it. So you don't just have to look at one. So you take it, instead of looking at all the lenders in one market, we can look at one lender or collection of lenders across all markets. And so you can actually get a heat map of your market share. You can get a heat map of your competitors' market share. And so you start thinking about that from from the issue of, well, here's where the opportunity is. If we are looking at like what we call the distribution of loans in a particular market, and here's the number one lender. Well, chances are that lender's distribution is going to look pretty similar to the markets, because that's how you get to more market share. Whether it's similar in geography or similar in what we call loan composition type, borrower mix, product mix. So again, it's that matching, comparing, prioritizing path that we just keep going over and over again,
with more and more information to support it, which only makes smarter decisions. I think that's extremely cool and pretty exciting as well. I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle either. Just quick reminder for our attendees, when can they expect out preliminary figures behind the latest HMDA data release?
Well, the disclosure reports have to by law be out by the 31st. I'm going to be more optimistic than Bernard, like usual, and say we're going to have them out in 2 to 3 weeks, 2 weeks tops. He's going to say a month. The point is that it's going to be out, at least a month before the big HMDA snapshot. I know there is some concern that it's not a complete data set. For the last 2 years, our preliminary reports have been 99.2% of what the HMDA snapshot looked like, and about 2 to 3 months earlier. So we're pretty confident in the ability to aggregate these disclosures to get the information and give our clients a really quick head start, as in like 2 weeks from now head start.
Which I love. And if lenders listening in on this call want to have that head start on their peers as well, certainly worth a conversation with Bernard and Laird about getting signed up with iEmergent. iEmergent released a new solution in 2020 called Diversify. I'd love to see the floor here just to give a little color about what Diversify is, and then for you to both be able to expand upon how Diversify is helping lenders make sense of the economic impacts from COVID-19, as well as how they can leverage Diversify to support their fair lending initiatives.
Okay, so I'll take that one. So Diversify is a feature really of MarketSmart, but it's one we created that was a little bit simplified so that it could be utilized by branch managers and MLOs kind of in the field. And we did this in connection with NAMBA and Tony Thompson. And Tony's an LO at heart, and he knows what LOs and salespeople need. And he said, you know what? It's really important when you're looking at these areas of opportunity that we give them the tools they need to build better partnerships. And so what Diversify does is it specifically focuses on bringing in MLS listings, in real time, so that we can see, what listings are there, but then pivot those listings to get a really good view of who are the top agents. And what we're starting to find is that when we look for the top agents, it's that same thing that I said earlier. Top agents doesn't necessarily mean the agents with the most listings or transactions or sales in the market. A top agent could be that agent that maybe did 20 sales last year, but 95% of their sales are in this zone that targets heavily to Hispanics. So again, that's that same idea that if you get the raw data, you match it with forecast, you match it with HMDA, you match it with your branches and your own originations as stats. Pretty soon you get an idea about who the players are and how you might be able to partner with them. The same thing holds true for, there's the real estate data, but the same is true for, looking for community nonprofits or hospitals. When you can get at that market level, there's so many connections that can be made, and again, creative and strategic ways to do things that you only get if you are involving the sales teams. And so Diversify was what?
I was going to add to that. I was just going to say to support, what Laird has been explaining. It's the idea of if we figure out in a market, whether it's a county or even down to a census tract, where the mortgage opportunity is going to be. an LO might look at that and push back and say, well, thanks for letting me know, where it is going to be, where this opportunity is going to be, but what do I do with this information? And the point of Diversify is to be able to provide them with those live MLS listings on top of those areas that have a lot of opportunity, so that loan officers have a place to start. They now know the name and contact information for a listing agent, for example. And the point is that they can transform this data from insight into action by having that extra data point on top of the map.
Yeah, and you can also use that same, the location and the listing data to understand too which down payment assistance programs a particular property might qualify for. And again, that's sort of an added value you can use when you talk to a realtor and say, hey, we have this special DPA program that this home is perfectly positioned. This is a great place for that particular property. And, do you have a borrower or a buyer that might fit this? Because if you do, we've got a product and a program that will help.
No, I mean, it's fantastic. It really arms LOs with the tools necessary, not only to identify the top listing agents in, a geographic or metro in which they're originating in or want to grow their business, but Bernard, to your point, kind of the tools to be able to say through DPA programs or through a lender's own product footprint, here's how I can support you, and to be able to start a dialogue and hopefully build a referral relationship and grow their book of business. I think it's really unique from being able to leverage data to form relationships in this industry right now. It's a bridge that I haven't seen connected previously.
And it's nice because even though some organizations want that in the hands of their LOs, and some of our clients, that data is given out to the LOs rather than they're, logging in. So either way works. The point is of getting the information in the hands of the person who's going to take action with it.
Absolutely. So to close out today's discussion, I always like to shine the spotlight back on our guest and kind of see what's coming down the line. So to the extent that you both can share, would love a quick teaser on what our attendees can expect from iEmergent over the course of 2021.
I'll start with that. So just like I just finished talking about our MLS, our live MLS data on top of our dynamic maps, we are working right now to incorporate MLO data, mortgage loan officer data, as another layer on top of our forecasting maps. So what will that do? The idea is that it will be able, if you're, for recruiting purposes, looking to recruit MLOs to your company, you'll be able to verify, their origination volumes, for example. But also, it's going to be almost like a proxy, like a live look into HMDA as we track, by month or by quarter, how well different loan officers are doing, and therefore how well different lenders are doing in terms of the market and market share in their entire business.
And again, I'm gonna go back and add sort of the value add that I think our maps bring. You can get this information, MLO and current market share data from other sources. But I think what makes us unique is that point again, that you're going to be able to use this for diverse markets. Other places, yeah, you can get a list of the top 10 LOs in a particular, or top, whatever LOs in Tampa, for example. But our data is going to allow you to see that part of Tampa where 95% of the loans are to minorities. And guess what? The LOs that are doing really well there and that have their 100% or 95% of their businesses there, you can pretty much make the assumption that they're pretty good with people of color and some of the minority groups. And so it becomes, again, a way to focus and drill down to those gaps, specifically around the changes in demographics and diversity.
Well, I just think it's really cool. The more layers upon layers that you're adding into the platform, and the mapping metrics just creates more diverse insights that any given lender or originator could take away from really the pool of information that you've made accessible at someone's fingertips, and layer it on top of one another through those different mapping conventions across the country. So I love it, and I appreciate what you guys are doing to support the industry. It's really unique. Um, on top of that, I know got some exciting information coming down the line too. Would you like to elaborate on an upcoming white paper that lenders should keep an eye out for?
Yep. On I think April 6th, Housing Wire is releasing a white paper that we've worked on with them. It's specific to the work that I'm doing with the MBA and the convergence initiatives in both Columbus and Memphis. And it's really looking at how we are changing the paradigm of lending from the status quo to the new way, as we put it. So it really goes through that new paradigm, going from a risk to opportunity-based approach. It also covers sort of our 5-step approach to how you do that. How do you quantify, compare, prioritize, focus, and act to really make the most of that data? So that's the white paper that's coming out. And then I am going to be talking at the MBA Spring Conference about making fair lending work for you. So kind of similar topics, but most all of them really geared to how can lenders take action with data.
Well, it's extremely exciting. I know we'll definitely keep an eye out for not only that session at the MBA Spring Virtual Conference, but also the findings from your upcoming white paper in conjunction with Housing Wire, and just appreciate the contributions and the insights for the industry to leverage to support equitable home ownership really across diverse footprints.
And kudos to TMC for always calling that out too. You guys do an excellent job with that as well.
Well, thank you. We want to be a steward to serving our industry and growing home ownership in the country. So it's it's the least we could do to support. So on that note, Bernard, Laird, I want to thank you so much for being my guests today. To our listeners, be on the lookout for both the podcast and YouTube links that you can view on demand, and highly encourage you to share with those in your organization that would gain value from this discussion that maybe couldn't join us today. So Laird, Bernard, appreciate you both. And to our attendees, we'll see you next time for a special edition of TMC Tech Talk on Wednesday, April 7th. We'll have John Freed from Holland Mortgage Advisors, as well as TMC's Emerging Tech Fund Manager, Sandy Selman. They're going to come join me to talk a little bit more about the Emerging Tech Fund's first investment, what's coming down the line for the Tech Fund in 2021. And then you can join us 2 weeks from today on April 15th for our next regularly scheduled episode, where we'll have Mortgage Coach President Joe Puther. So until then, if you're talking TMC, you're talking tech, and be well, everyone.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.